Welcome to the Fantasy Aceball podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on Twitter at Fantasy Aceball. And if you're watching on YouTube at the Tim Kanak, you can already see that we have a guest. So the guest today is the one, the only Eric Cross at Eric Cross MLB, at Rotoballer, at Toolshed Pod, all over the place. Eric Cross, what's going on, Eric? How you doing?
I'm good, Tim. How you doing, bud?
Not too bad. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Another baby down, number 5. You know, I got a whole hand of babies now. So
Congratulations. You're getting your own starting 9 going there.
yeah, I've got the basketball team. I'm one away from the hockey team. And baseball team, I don't think I'm going to reach that number. I don't think that one's happening. Hockey, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. But
you got the whole infield. You got the whole infield at least. So he's gonna work on the outfield next.
Very true. Very true. We can go around the horn a little bit. So yeah, only one can throw right now worth anything. So anyway, I wanted to start this pod off. I had some in-person views that I saw, and I just wanted to get some of your feeling because like one of these guys is super hot. One of these guys I was texting Welsh about, and then one of these guys was traded recently. And I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on some of these guys real quick. So Raniel Rodriguez is the first one, right? I've probably seen him like 10 times or something this year. I don't know if, besides like professional scouts, if anyone has actually seen him play more than me at this point in time, unless you're like work for the Cardinals or something. So I've seen him a ton, and he is just been insane. The other day I got some open face video slow-mo of him hitting a ball 395 feet to dead center that I thought it was gone, but it bounced off the wall and was a double. And then he hit a home run the next game. So like this dude is just on an absolute tear right now. I just wanted to find out because this guy, I'm telling you, he's top 50 for me. I'm not going to give away exactly where he is until he comes up in the podcast order here, but he's top 50 for me. Where do you have Raniel Rodriguez?
Yeah, no, he's definitely in that range for me as well. And he's been absolutely tearing it up down there in your neck of the woods down there for Palm Beach. Like 13 home runs in 58 games, and really I think if I recall correctly, he started off a little bit slow at the level, but really kind of turned it on after he got adjusted. And I mean, he's still only 18. I think people have to remember that. So like anytime these players that are really young for the level struggle initially. I don't really read too much into it. I'm like, hey, look, he's 18, getting his first taste of single A level. So, yeah, he's definitely in that top 50 discussion, and I think I'm gonna have him there as well. I'm still finalizing my September update here, and at this point, he's one of the best catching prospects in the game. I mean, obviously the power is on full display when you watch him, but I think he's become a better pure hitter than I think a lot of people expected him to be. You look at some of the contact rates he's putting up right now in low A, it's about 77, 78%, which is pretty darn good. He's walking at a high clip, 14.5%, keeping that K rate in check, getting on base, hitting for power. So yeah, I think there's a really good prospect in here, and yeah, he's a catcher, and yeah, St. Louis has a million of those. I'm not really worried about that right now, but the bat is legit. So, yeah, just on the bat alone, I think he absolutely deserves to be top 50 or at least in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty decent catcher too behind the plate. Like he's got a pretty good arm. As far as calling a game, like he's in it. Like he's really competitive and he's really in the game. And I even made a note the other day. I was at the game and it was a doubleheader and there's a rain delay. And he was the first dude back on the field for both teams. Like after the rain delay, he was back on the field, just moving around, like swinging the bat. Like he wasn't even up to bat next, and he was just the first guy for both teams on the field. So the dude, like on the first game of a doubleheader on a rain delay on like a really hot day. So it's like when I see that, I'm like, okay, this dude gets it. Like he's not here for fun. You know what I mean? Like he's not here to. I mean, like he was having fun, but like he's not here to play around. Like to him, this is like straight business. And he's a gamer. He's a go-getter. And like also for him, you could see the transition. Like when he first came up, I think I saw his first home game and he looked overmatched at the plate, just like bad swings. And now he owns the box. Like when he comes up to bat, like he just owns, like he literally owns that box. Like this is my territory. And he goes,
Yeah.
and this is something I want to ask him next time I talk to him, because I have talked to him a couple times. Is he like takes his bat before he hits and draws something in the dirt. I don't know if he's like putting a cross or something, but like he's drawing something in the dirt every time. And I was like, okay, I want to know what he's drawing in the dirt every time before he goes to bat. He's drawing something with his bat. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? So like, I want to figure that out. Next guy that I got eyes on, Nate Payne. This is a guy that I was texting Welsh about. So Nate Payne, really interesting guy. He's only been going in like 3 inning stints so far. Had a pretty good complex. Came up to Aceball. I've seen 3 of his 4 starts so far. First 2 were fantastic. Curve is nasty. The second start was like he pitched 3 perfect innings with like 5 Ks or 6 Ks. But the curve is nasty for Nate Payne. So that's a guy that like nobody's really talking about. And I wanted to kind of find out if he's on anyone else's radar, because the other day Welch was texting me. He's like, hey, have you seen Nate Payne? I'm like, yeah, I've seen him actually 3 out of his 4 starts. So I've seen him kind of a bunch. And I've posted a bunch of video of him, but I posted a strikeout where he struck out Raniel Rodriguez the other day. So he's pretty nasty, Nate Payne with the Marlins.
Yeah, no, I think the reason why he's not getting talked about is because he was a 18th round, 18th round pick last year in the 2024 draft. So wasn't really a highly touted prospect. Didn't have a huge signing bonus coming out of high school, but yeah, like he's shown a really good feel for spin with his breaking balls, and to the point where he can really miss bats, and you've really seen that. I mean, this year between complex and low A, the guy has a K rate around 33.5%. A little bit of some walk issues right now, but he's a young arm. He's still only 20 years old. Just turned 20, like I think 2 weeks ago here, middle part of August. So definitely has some time to clean those up. But that's one thing I really like seeing. With young pitchers. We've seen a lot of good young pitchers dominate other young hitters when if they have an overpowering fastball. But sometimes they don't have the rest of the arsenal. Once they get up, high A, double A, triple A, they don't have the rest of the arsenal. And I think, with Payne, it's kind of the opposite. There's still some questions about the fastball, but he's shown a good feel for spin. Like, that's why I like saying, like, does the pitcher have either a good feel for spin, good feel for a changeup, both? That's great, obviously. And obviously right now, Payne has that good feel, for generating spin, and can miss, plenty of bats with his breakers. So, yeah, Payne definitely kind of one of those sneaky guys. Again, this wasn't really touted coming out of high school, but that's why you look. I love seeing, like, looking at some top 100 prospect rankings. Like, look where these guys were drafted or signed. Sometimes they're international signee that didn't sign for a lot. Maybe it was just like a $20,000 signing guy, or one of these draftees that was like 10th plus round that really wasn't on anyone's radar. That's why I love baseball. You can find these pop up guys so often, and Payne absolutely looks like one of those guys. So yeah, definitely. I don't have him my top 100 or anything like that yet. I know some people I think are putting him there. What people I've talked to, but he's definitely a guy on the rise who could be top 100 in time for me too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about the walk rate. Last time I saw him, the command looked a little rough because he was throwing the sinker a lot, which the sinker he has trouble commanding.
Yeah.
But the fastball curve, like he's got the curve right in the zones. The slider is like on and off as far as command, but the fastball and the curve he's got pretty good command of. And the umps in A-ball are pretty bad. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw a Pitching Ninja posted, there's this kid, and he posted this kid ump. He was at this game, and it kind of like went viral like a week ago or something like that. And that kid is always at the stadium here in Jupiter, Roger Dean. And that kid is a better ump than the umps, like, all the time. Like, I have videos of this kid that I posted on YouTube where the kid gets the call right and the ump gets it wrong, and we're like laughing. And it's on, like, they'll overturn it. Like, the players will overturn it. The kid ump will get it right. So it's pretty funny that, like, the umps just in A-ball are not the best. Last guy that I had eyes on that I want to talk about is Esmil Valencia. So he came over from Houston to the Marlins at the trade deadline. And in 20 games since coming to the Marlins, and I'm telling you, every time I see this guy, he's just like insane. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is ridiculous. Ever since he came to the Marlins, he's hitting 363, 400, 588 in 20 games with 3 bombs and 11 steals, Eric. And this guy, like when he was back with Houston, he was kind of like, okay, like 263, 325, 357. You're like, yeah, he's like 103 WRC plus. But ever since he came to the Marlins, 169 WRC plus. And it's not like it's a better ballpark. Roger Dean is one of the worst ballparks in the minor leagues for hitting. And this guy is just like en fuego. Like this is the definition of en fuego right here. Esmil Valencia. So is he on your radar at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely is. And first and foremost, like he's just been tearing the base paths apart. He's been the absolute nightmare for minor league catchers right now. What's he up to? Yeah, 61 steals right now. He's at 11 steals in 20 games since getting over to the Miami organization here, and he's been very aggressive. I think that's the best way to describe him. Like the guy is just aggressive in every facet of the game. You look at some of the swing rates, they're higher. They're like 54, 55%. And that does get him, a little bit of swing and miss in terms of swing and strike rate, but he hasn't, let it, hinder him in terms of the strikeout rate in general. I mean, the K rate has been kept in check this year. It's only 13% in 20 games. Just getting over to the Miami organization. So you kind of want to see, where's that raw power end up long term. He's a little on the smaller side, but definitely has some potential to fill out. So, if this guy could end up being just like an average, power guy and not let the aggressiveness get the best of him to the point where the contact rates really plummet and become, concerning, I think this could be a really fun all-around prospect, given the fact that he's very aggressive on the base pass. There is some power projection, and the fact that he can keep the K rate in check too is pretty exciting as well. And another one of those guys where he was never, when he was signed out of the DR, like he was never a guy that was ranked anywhere. Like he wasn't one of the highly ranked prospects coming out of that international class. So yeah, definitely a really exciting young prospect. Miami's doing a good job. Miami's system has really gotten a lot better. Like it used to be one of the worst systems in baseball, like I'd say like 3, 4, 5 years ago, but they've just done a lot of good, whether it be, drafting, signing internationally and also, and obviously, making some trades to kind of replenish that system where they have like a sneaky good system now. And guys like, Valencia and others are a big reason for it, and Payne too. Like, so yeah, Valencia, I mean, he's a guy, he's in my 500, not like super high yet, but definitely a name to keep an eye on that can keep moving up.
Yeah, Bendix is a smart guy. So let's get now into the rankings. We're going to be doing 125 to 101. So right outside of the top 100 here. And they were my rankings. So if you don't like where someone's at, don't get mad at Eric. Blame me. So we're going to start with 125. And I'm going to actually throw up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube so you can follow along with some of the statistics and write-ups. So that will help someone. I actually did my own grades too this time, Eric. So I have my own scouting grades for Arsenals and for hitting grades and stuff like that. So I'm going to throw that stuff up on the screen. But Didier Fuentes is number 125. A lot of people know who he is because he already debuted in the majors at 19 years old, which is just absolutely insane. And the Braves did that kind of out of necessity because they had so many injuries. Maybe you could have said, okay, well, they could have called up Waldrop or just like, anyone in AAA instead of making a 19-year-old jump 4 levels, because that didn't really work out so well with AJ Smith-Shawver when they did the same thing with him a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So you say, I don't know about that one there. But the dude has a monster fastball, and he's got a pretty good sweeper too. But the fastball is really like the show for Didier Fuentes. 94 to 98 mile per hour fastball. Like I threw a 60 to potential 70 grade on that fastball. He also throws a splitter and a curveball. But I think that he can get to some good command this year in the minors, despite like having a 13 ERA or something like that in the majors. In the minors, he has a 2.53 SIERA as a 19-year-old. And that's at high A, double A, triple A, like basically traversing the entire spectrum of levels at this point, which you got to consider that too. Like the dude has literally moved all over the place. Like how can you live that way? He's lived out of a suitcase the whole season and still perform pretty well as a 19-year-old.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people don't think about is like the human element of this and how hard it is for. I mean, imagine if it was you or I, Tim, and let alone a kid that just turned 20 in the middle of this season and was up when he was 19. And I'm glad you brought up Smith Shawver. I was going to mention that too, not as like a direct comp, but just as like the situation where, Smith Shawver had, a lot of helium a couple years ago. He debuted, it didn't go so well, and I feel like it set him back a little bit. It's going to take him some time to kind of work back to, being a guy that, people can be excited about again. So I wonder if that's going to be like the similar thing with Fuentes. And some people would be like, oh, look at those 4 starts. They were absolutely terrible. And they were. I mean, he had a whip of 2.23, but we got to remember, like, he was absolutely rushed. I mean, before, let's see, he had how many starts above like low A before he got up? He had, let's see, he had 3 starts in high A, 5 in double A, 5 in triple A. So 13 starts total. And then boom, you're in the majors. So, actually, I think there's actually less than that actually, but yeah, just not a lot of time to kind of like work on your craft. I mean, yeah, the big fastball is there, but you got to learn how to, where to put it. Major league hitters can hit velocity. We know this. So, he's still a very raw overall, pitcher and overall prospect in his development. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited here. I mean, I wasn't a guy that had him ranked, really high as a prospect. I think he was like probably top 200 range when he debuted for me. But I'm still in on him long term. I think, again, just give him some time to just kind of finish his progression. The Braves seem to do this every couple of years. I'm not sure why. Maybe this time they'll learn their lesson and not do it with some other guy in 2027 or whatever after Smith Shawver and Fuentes got set back a little bit. But you don't let that 13 plus ERA, and it's 4 starts. Like, I'm not reading too much into that. I'm not really looking at that at all. I'm looking at just the body of work overall in the minor leagues, looking at the arsenal here and seeing that there is some potential, especially if he can kind of round out the rest of that arsenal, maybe get that splitter to be a legit third offering. He can miss bats with the breakers. So still a lot to like here. Just, let the guy finish developing, get him some more, seasoning in the minor leagues, maybe bring him back up, second half of next year or whatever it is. And I think there's still a talented arm here for sure.
Yeah, where do you think, like, because I've seen some people that are like, okay, he's top 100 or top, like, I've seen people really push him high up in the rankings ever since he debuted in the Stuff Plus models really popped because he's got like a 110 on the fastball Stuff Plus at the
Yep.
majors, 119 Stuff Plus overall. I mean, obviously it's small sample size, but like some people have really bumped him thanks to the Stuff models. Really loving him. Like, where are you at on him? Is he top 100 for you, or is he kind of like right outside, like me, like this kind of range?
I have him around 140 right now, so like in a similar range to like Trey Gibson, Jackson Wiggins. Logan Henderson was in that range too. I could take him off though, but yeah, kind of in that tier of pitching prospects. I think he absolutely could get on top 100 again. Again, I still like the potential. I still think there's a lot of upside here, and yeah, I'm not looking at that major league sample size at all. I think there's still a very talented young arm here. So yeah, I think he's definitely. I mean, if someone had him top 100, I wouldn't scoff at it. In general, pitching prospects, he's still technically a prospect. Obviously, I just rank them a little bit lower in general. This is my personal philosophy. So if someone has, a certain pitcher ranked 100 and me having them ranked like 140, it might not be we might not have a much of a different evaluation of them. It's just the way I rank, in general with my ranking. So yeah, definitely a top 100, type of talent for sure.
Yes, 124 is a hitter. It is second base, probably second base. I don't think he's going to be the shortstop because you've got Culpepper there, but it's second baseman Kyle DeBarge with the Twins. A lot of speed here with DeBarge. I kind of comped him to like a bit of a Jet Williams ish profile, kind of like has Matt McLean ish mechanics if you watch him. But he's got pretty good plate skills and he's mostly speed. Like he has what could develop into a decent hit tool, like 77.6% contact rate could be solid. Really like for for high A, double A, whatever, like I want to see in the 80s for having a good hit tool. The EVs are pretty low. So like 106.2 max EV, 102 90th last year at 2024. Don't have any StatCast data for 2025 for him on that, but he's a smaller dude. But I think that he could kind of be like the Twins version of Jet Williams here. That's Kyle DeBarge for the Twins. He's got 62 steals on the season. So, you can't scoff at that. What do you think about Kyle DeBarge?
Yeah, and past the high stolen base number, he's only been caught 7 times. So he's been successful and like right around like 90% of his plate appearances, which is also really exciting because I forget who I was writing up the other day. I can't remember the name right now, but it was some guy that had like 40 something steals this year. Like, oh, it's like 48 steals, but he had like 27 times he was caught. I'm like, all right, that needs to be cleaned up, or else not gonna keep getting that green light on the base paths. But yeah, DeBarge very efficient on the base paths, and you see outside of the power right now. As you mentioned, the power is not really a big part of his game, but the fact that he makes good contact, he's got a good approach, and he's got 350 OBP this year, walk rate around 13%, K rate 21.5%. So he's got some good things going for him right now. He's a higher ground ball guy, though that has come down this year. But even if he's only like a 10 to 15 homer guy, which is kind of where I kind of think he winds up at this point in time, if he can get just to double-digit home runs to go with a solid average in OBP, and maybe he's a 30-plus steal guy in the majors, I think that's still a very useful player. Maybe like a Whit Merrifield type of player. Obviously that's high comp, everything clicks type of thing. But yeah, definitely like a high floor player. He was a first round pick, 33rd overall. College guy. So guy that should continue to move quickly through the system. Maybe we see him later next year in the majors. But yeah, I really want to see where he ends up. Like you mentioned, Culpepper. I love Culpepper. I have Culpepper. Like I think rest of my top 50 right now. I think he's definitely a really exciting prospect. So we'll see where DeBarge kind of winds up long term, how that kind of all shakes out in the next year or two. These guys are finishing their development, but it definitely has a good base of skills, and hopefully he can get to at least double-digit home runs. Just give me 10 to 15, and I'll be happy with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always rough when guys are in high A or double A because you don't have that Statcast data. So you kind of have to like make assumptions until spring training. Sometimes if the guys are in spring, we'll get Statcast data from spring. And so we'll say, okay, so their spring data, they had this kind of EV versus like what they had back in A-ball. So we can maybe assume some sort of progression based on like you get to always take the percent that has upticked and be like, okay, so maybe their power is, this much better across the board on all the EVs because sometimes in spring you'll only get the max EV and you won't get like 90th or average. So it's like it's kind of putting the puzzle pieces together since we don't have all the data publicly available. The teams sometimes will leak some of it, but not always. 123 is Bo Davidson, outfielder with the Giants. So Bo Davidson, interesting guy. He's having a really solid season. Has like zero pedigree, like another guy like Nate Payne that we just talked about with like no pedigree whatsoever. I think he was signed as an undrafted free agent, which is pretty awesome. Contact is okay. Like this is my thoughts on him. Like his contact rate is not great, but he does hit to really good angles. So it's like sometimes contact rate can be forgivable if you're going to hit to great angles and get to more power than you should. But he's netted a 112 max EV so far. And the swing is a really pretty swing. And he's got some power and some speed in there, but I like the swing. Reminds me of Curtis Granderson when I watch him. And you might kind of get that type of profile. So from Granderson, you're kind of getting like 2010 seasons with 260 batting average, whatever. I kind of see something like that for Bo Davidson. I think he's a dude. I think, he'll be a guy that, even though the Giants have kind of like a cluster of outfield types that are in their system, I think he's going to be one of the guys that emerges over, they've got like a bunch of guys like Drew Gilbert, and they've got all these guys at A-ball. For whatever reason, the Giants like have a ton of dudes at A-ball that are like 23 years old. But Bo Davidson, they've actually promoted to a decent level at Double A right now. What do you think about Bo Davidson?
Man, I love Bo Davidson. I'm pretty high on him, and shout out to Granderson too. That was one of my, as a Red Sox fan, probably one of my favorite Yankees players ever. I used to love watching Granderson play. He was really fun. One of those guys that you always have a smile on his face, pretty infectious guy. Kind of reminds me of like just the personality, like Jazz Chisholm wise, personality wise nowadays. But yeah, Davidson's a guy I've been pretty high on for most of the season now. One of the things I love doing, over my Patreon, I write close to daily article called Cross Examination, where I just dig into, all right, who performed well yesterday, look at the profile, are they trending up, they trending down, and it's really get into the profile and examine these players. And Davidson was a guy that just kind of was kept popping like every few days. I'm like, oh hey, like Davidson had another good game, so that kind of caused a deeper dive for me earlier this season. And yeah, he's a little bit old, and like you mentioned, San Francisco, they've all seemed to be a little bit slow slow churning with their prospects. Like I remember like that last one, like Hunter Bishop was like 24 in high A. So I think they've it's kind of been their philosophy for the most part. But yeah, Davidson is really solid across the board. I mean, he's a guy, kind of a different guy than some of the hitters we talked about so far, where the hit tool isn't super advanced, but I don't think it's a bad hit tool either. Contact rates, it wasn't like the 75% range, kind of dipped a little bit, like 71-ish%. And since he got the bump up to double A, but I think it's above average power, average to above average speed as well, where this guy could be a guy that's kind of like flirting 2020 annually if everything works out for him down the road, and a guy that could draw a walk as well. He's always been a high walk rate guy. That stepped a little bit in double A, but still a 9.5% walk rate there. And elsewhere, it was like 14+% at every level so far. And yeah, like you mentioned, another one of those guys that was just not thought about when he was, when he entered professional baseball, because he wasn't drafted back in 2023. And, he's a guy that wasn't really on any prospect radar until like kind of later on last year, like second half of last year. He started like kind of like, getting some love a little bit. So a guy that wasn't even in my 500 till probably like last August or so. And now he's a guy that I have top 100 overall at, where do I have him? 87 overall right now. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Bo Davidson, and I think he's a bit undervalued right now too.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely. I thought I was high on him at 123. I was like, okay, that's a nice spot for him, but 87, love it. 122, Luis Perales. He's finally throwing again, Eric. There were reports the other day, and Red Sox fan, so I want to hear your thoughts on him. But apparently, he was throwing his bullpen and already hitting 98 the other day. So Luis Perales obviously was like balling, completely balling at the beginning of last year, and then had to get TJ. So 33 innings last year, almost 20% swing strike rate. So just ridiculous stuff from Perales. I comped him to Bryce Miller with worse command because his fastball is pretty ridiculous, and he's got a splitter as his second pitch. But I put 60, 65 grades on the fastball and the splitter. Fastball hits high 90s. So obviously he's throwing 98 right after having TJ as he's doing these bullpens here. But I think it'd be nice to get a couple starts. I don't know if what their plan is, if they're just going to throw him in fall league or whatever, and not get him in games at the end of the season here, or if they're actually going to throw him into games before the end of the year. But it's good that he's healthy now because I had him as a top 100 guy, and I thought he was going to be back sooner, and it's just kind of taking him longer and longer and longer to recover here. And so I've been like, okay, and like my rank I had him at last time was 94. And it's not like I'm pushing him down for any particular reason. It's more just because we had the draft. So we have a bunch of new guys that I had to throw in there more than anything. But besides that, like Perales, I'm happy that he's coming back.
Oh, me too. I think people kind of have forgotten because he's been gone for over a year now, and the emergence of a lot of other Red Sox pitching prospects this year. With Peyton Tolley obviously leading the way. That he kind of. I'm not saying he's like the forgotten guy, but kind of is. I mean, in fact, that I think people kind of forget the hype that was there last year and what made him such an exciting pitching prospect. It's because we haven't seen him in a bit, and there's other names that have been talked about a lot in this Red Sox system this year. So. He was one last year where he had just gotten the double A, and I was so excited. He was just gotten up here to my neck of the woods up here in Maine, and I was just about to go see him. I think I was actually going to go see his next. As I couldn't make. I think he had one home start, one road start. Home start I couldn't make, and then obviously I wasn't going on the road, but I was going to make his next home start, and then boom, he's out for the year. So I was really bummed. I was really excited to see him last year before he went under the knife, but. Yeah, there's a ton of upside here. I mean, this guy has kind of always been, popping in terms of just like Red Sox conversations. And he was signed way back, I think it was 2019 or 2020. I can't remember which year, but it had been a few years. But he was a guy like, oh, like look at this guy that's just throwing absolute straight up cheese, down here in the complex. And he was still kind of honing his craft, but he was getting a lot, more and more. Like all that talk was getting louder and louder, and the point where, yeah, this guy has, I think, top 10 pitching prospect potential. If he comes back, I mean, you mentioned the velocity; it's already back. That's great to see. He was a guy that did have a little bit of command issues, so I always got to wonder how the command looks like in general coming back, from a major injury, especially for guys that already had command issues. But the stuff is really good. You mentioned the splitter; he's like a slider cutter kind of hybrid, like a tight bullet slider. that he uses as well. And all three of those pitches are really, really good offerings. So be fun to see, when he starts getting back in game action here. But I think he's a guy to buy now, because I think there's a good chance that, wherever he's ranked for anybody now, whether it's, you rest the top 100, or if somebody even has him ranked 200, I think you see that ranking really jump in 2026. Again, I think he could be a top 50 prospect at some point next year. So definitely a guy to grab now before that price tag really soars.
Agreed. That's why I love this section of prospect rankings, because it's right outside of the top 100. That's really
Yep.
where you're going to find a ton of value. 121. This is a big name. Everybody's talking about him. I've actually seen him. I saw his first start at A-ball. That is Johnny King with the Blue Jays. So started the year in complex, jumped over to A-ball. I thought he was really good, but there's someone that we're going to talk about later that I also have seen live. I've seen basically anyone that's come through A-ball this year I've seen, except for Connor Griffin, because he got promoted before I could see him, unfortunately. But Johnny King, I comped him to like shades of Carlos Rodon is what I threw on here, because he's just big velo lefty, 258 Sierra on the year, but he's got a whole kitchen sink type approach. He's got fastball, he's got splitter, slider, changeup, curve. So he's got a bunch of good pitches. I was most impressed by the slider and the fastball live. The splitter, though, has like some pretty nasty statistics behind it. And also that slider has a 22.6 swing strike rate at A-ball. So, that'll play. What do you got on Johnny King?
Yeah, man, Toronto is doing it right. Yeah, right now with their pitching development. Obviously Trader Savage being the big name. I love, when you one on Watts Brown too when they had him. I saw him live as well. Johnny King as well. Toronto's got some good pitching prospects, and they'll get Tiedemann back here some point, hopefully. But yeah, they're doing it right there on the pitching side, and King has been one of the big kind of examples of that. I mean, this guy can just miss bats at an elite clip. I think he has one of the highest strikeout rates in the minor leagues this year. I think it's like top 5. I know like Tolley was up there, Tong was up there, obviously, but I think he was like one of the first few behind those two guys, because I think 30 was the key, right?
39-4.
Yeah, 39-4. And I think both those guys I mentioned, Tong and Tolley, were like 41%. So he might have even been like third or something like that in terms of guys that had at least 50 innings this year. But yeah, it's really impressive stuff. And this is a guy that he's still very raw. I mean, he just debuted this year. He's 18 years old, 57 innings under his belt, third rounder last year. But if he really takes a step forward over the next year or two, with that command, because that's kind of the hindrance right now is he's not locating great, but he's getting by on just flat out movement, and then also, good velocity on the fastball too. So if he just really hones in on his craft and learns where to locate these pitches, when to go outside the zone, when to go in the zone, this could be a really dangerous, like maybe top 5 pitching prospect. I mean, you gotta love the fact he's already missing bats at an elite clip. You mentioned that slider, good changeup as well, or shows good traits. It's got good movement on it. We'll see if he can really hone that in to be a consistent third offering for him. But yeah, Johnny King, I mean, there's a lot of hype on him right now, and I think it's justified. I have King. Where do I have King? I have him somewhere in this range here. There's a lot of Kings in my ranking. Seaver King. There's Johnny King. Yeah, I have him at one. Actually, very close to you. I have him at 117 right now. So he's a guy that I think could be maybe top 100 by the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the command. I've kind of already noted the bad umps at A-ball, and this
Right.
is something that's interesting. He had a 7% walk rate in complex, and then 18% in A-ball. In the Florida State League, we have ABS, and they use it all the time, like 10 times a game. I'm seeing ABS being used. So one of the things that as a pitcher you have to get used to is you can't play corners. Like
Right.
if you're playing corners, you have to get really good at playing corners when you're dealing with ABS, especially when I saw him, he was trying to hit corners and just not getting the calls. And a lot of that is that also, like when he first came up, it was pre-draft. So all those guys that he first faced when I saw him all went to high A right after the draft. Boom. And now they're all gone. They're all in high A right now. So those guys had already been in A-ball for a year and a half, and they've learned how to kind of game the ABS to their advantage. Whereas Johnny King was like fresh with like figuring out, oh, what the hell? I didn't get that call. Like what? So that's something that you have to figure out is like, I'm not like with the ABS, like I know it's like not the end all be all, but you see that it really affects some of these guys because they get gamed. You can really game it if you're trying to hit corners and then you're not getting your corners calls, especially if you have stuff with wicked movement. Like you're not going to get the calls with a ton of movement. You have to be more pinpoint. So we're going to go now to 120. This is the other pitcher I was talking about, Dason Hill. So Dason Hill is a dude that I have also seen this year, and I jacked Dason Hill ahead of Johnny King, even though probably most people would have Johnny King ahead of Dason Hill. I've seen them both live, and Dason Hill, and I think he actually had his best start the other night of the year. I think he had 8 Ks the other day, which is not on this stat sheet right here. But when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, this guy is just so nasty. And I didn't even know who he was, Eric. It was the first game of the year that I saw, like the first minor league game of the year. And I went, and he was pitching, and he was like first inning, I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, this kid is so good. And I just started getting all this video of him. And then he kind of blew up after that, and people started like figuring out who he was because he was just like a third rounder, right? Like he wasn't like a high. I mean, like third round is not bad, but it's not like he was a super high pedigree kid. But his stuff is ridiculous. Like he's got ridiculous movement on his stuff, on the sweeper, the changeup. There was the fastball 98 from the left side. For whatever reason, they've got him throwing a sinker, which I think is his worst pitch, and that's the pitch that he's throwing the most. I think that they should just cut that out. Like I don't know. Like the sinker is better if it's not your primary fastball. It's better if it's playing off of other fastballs. Like not everyone is Elmer Rodriguez Cruz throwing just nasty sinkers as like a primary, which I don't recommend. But for whatever reason, that's his number one pitch as far as like arsenal usage, which I don't really recommend. I feel like he'd have better outcomes if he, even though maybe he doesn't like feel like he doesn't get good vert on the fastball. To me, that thing was playing from the left side coming out with his like, and he's like a lanky dude too. He's like a skinnier dude.
Yeah.
So like sometimes with skinnier dudes, there's a little more deception, more moving parts. Like you get a little more extension on that fastball and it's harder to hit. So I feel like, even if, the things don't say it's showing high vert, like to me, it looked like a really good pitch. And I'm like, just throw that thing instead of the sinker.
Yeah. Hill's a guy I'm very high on as well. And I have him, I think we're actually similar spot with him too. I have him like about 10 spots ahead right now. He's at I have him 102. So a guy that like I want to put top 100. I'm trying to figure out like who to bump out of my top 100. That's why I love this ranking. I mean, there's so many guys I like, oh, that guy should be top 100, but I only can put 100 guys in there. And right now he's one of the first few out. But really exciting stuff. Like you mentioned, he's a big, lanky lefty that has shown he's shown good feel for spin. He's shown a much improved changeup this year as well. That was kind of a pitch that lagged behind entering the year. That's taken notable steps forward this year. He's got velocity, got to work on the shape a little bit, like you mentioned, but all the ingredients are here. I mean, I think I use that expression a lot where like all the ingredients to being like one of the best pitching prospects in the game are here for Hill. And he's a really, really exciting pitching prospect, guy that can already miss bats, at a high clip, and he's still very raw. I mean, this guy is still 19 years old. He won't turn 20 until actually Christmas Day, initial Christmas birthday there. But there was a lot of excitement about him last year's draft. He's one of those like really projectable, exciting, high school arms, and he's kind of already exceeded all of those expectations. So yeah, Hill is a guy that I think he could really pop and be a top 5 pitching prospect as well. Like, there's a lot of those guys in this range. Like I have Kendrick Churio in this range as well. A lot of exciting young pitching prospects in this range for me at least. And yeah, Hill is definitely one of them. So he's a guy that I'm trying to get as many shares of as I can because I think the upside here is pretty massive.
Yeah, for sure. Next on the list, 119, another young pitcher is Michael Fourette with the Orioles. If you really dig into this guy, he's a ton of fun. This guy is like obsessive with pitching. Because he went to Tread and there's all this video. I guess he worked with Tread and he's like, yeah, cool. You can post all my video. So there's all this actual Tread video on him like developing pitches this offseason. So Michael Fourette on the season, His numbers are just video game. He's at double A now as a 21-year-old. 25.9 K minus walk, 15.6 swing strike, 1.28 ERA, 0.7 whip. And these numbers are actually backed, Eric, by a 2.18 Sierra on the season. So it's not like, it's just good luck on his side. I comp him to a Pablo Lopez / Tanner Bybee mash. And this dude is just straight command and kitchen sink. Because all his pitches to me, there's like not one elite pitch, but they're all like above average pitches. And he just got so many of them that it keeps everybody off balance. Like this is a pitcher. This is not a thrower. This is a pitcher's pitcher, right? So he's throwing a fastball mid 90s. He's throwing a sinker or a splitter. He's throwing a sweeper. He's throwing a death ball that he developed at Tread. He's throwing a regular changeup that's a circle change. Then he's also got a kick change. So he's just throwing the whole kitchen sink at guys, and what he's doing is working, especially because he's doing it with such great command at the same time. So this is just like a pitcher's pitcher, and he's pretty underrated. I never have really even like heard anyone else talk about him, but this is like a super interesting dude.
Absolutely, and kind of like how I mentioned earlier with Davison, a guy that just kind of popped off to me when doing my daily write-ups. Ferret's like the pitching side of that, where wasn't like super high on him coming in. I think he might have been like back end of my top 500, but now he's a guy that's also in consideration for top 100 overall at this point. And he's kind of in a similar range to a lot of these guys we've already talked about, a lot of these pitchers, but I think he's insanely underrated. I don't think really anybody's talking about Michael Ferret enough because, like you mentioned, that these guys that have just a good, well-rounded arsenal, as opposed to having like that one, like Fuentes has that huge fastball, right? Or Hill, has a huge slider. Like these guys that have like a huge, one or two huge offerings that might not have, the well-rounded arsenal. These guys are the ones that people talk about because they're fun to watch. And I'm not saying Ferret's not fun to watch, but he's a guy that just, you mentioned, he is a pitcher. He's very high floor, but at the same time, I think there's solid upside here as well, where maybe he's not a frontline guy or number two, but I think he could be like a really good number three, like a guy that you don't have to worry about. You look at the end of every year, like, oh, Ferret had another good year, like one of those kind of set him and forget about him guys in your fantasy lineup down the road potentially. So, Baltimore hasn't really had a lot of good luck on pitching side up until this year, but now they got Ferret, they got Aceball Mejia. It's really starting to get a little better on that side of their prospect development after being very, hitter, led the last few years. So yeah, Ferret I think is probably one of the more undervalued pitching prospects in the game right now.
Yeah, he's just super consistent. One of the things is the reason he's not on anyone's radar is he hasn't had one of these like blowout games with like 10 Ks or whatever.
Right.
Every game is like 6 Ks, 0 walks, 7 Ks, 1 walk. It's like just the same thing every game. So it's like, if you can be volatile, you can have a 14K game, and then all of a sudden you're, that guy's awesome. And then he gets shelled the next game. But if you're just only looking at Twitter to get all your information, you're not going to know that he got shelled that next game. You're only going to see, hey, this guy had 14 Ks in a game. That's pretty sick. And you're going to like not get the consistency. So that's why it's so important to kind of stay on top of like what's happening week in, week out with some of these guys. 118 is Tommy Troy with the Diamondbacks. I had this guy when he was first drafted. I loved him. I was like, oh man, that's like one of the most underrated players in the draft that the Diamondbacks got. And I feel like every time that the Diamondbacks draft, I love the draft. Like a couple of years ago, they drafted Troy. I loved it. Last year, they got Waldschmidt and they got what's his face, and like I loved their draft.
Caldwell.
Yeah, Caldwell. I loved their draft last year. I was a big Waldschmidt guy, and like he's just blown up now. And then this year, Cunningham, like I love that pick too. They're just on it. But anyway, Tommy Troy having a good bounce back season after the rough season last year. 288, 381, 463, 14 bombs, 21 steals. Like I think he's just kind of going to be one of these solid guys that is like a really good like middle infielder. If you're in that type of league, you could just stick him in a middle infielder. He's not going to kill you. Like maybe you'll get like I put on here as a comp Matt McLean light, Michael Garcia. So maybe you get some like Michael Garcia type lines in here. I think the contact rate is solid, and basically he's a bucket of 50s, right? Like he's just solid across the board without like one really standout tool. But he's got some speed in there. And this is the weird thing is he's always stolen more bases than he is fast. Like his home to first times when he was running, pre-draft were not like the greatest. So like that is one thing that may tick down as he gets older is the speed. But I think Troy is a pretty solid player. What do you think?
Oh yeah, he's basically like the hitting equivalent of Fournette, where nothing like stands out. Like there's no one loud tool, and that's why he gets a little bit undervalued. And you got to add in the fact that he was pretty underwhelming last year, and I think that took away some of the buzz because I remember him being not like a super buzzy guy when he was drafted, but there was definitely some people that liked him right in the industry, and I think I had him as like a top 15 FYPD guy, and then last year I was like, like this is not great. There was a injury he was dealing with, and then saw him out in the AFL. He looked pretty darn good. So I'm like, all right, let's keep an eye on him, see if he can kind of carry this over into 2025, and he absolutely has. And now he's on the door to the major leagues right now, up in AAA now for the last few weeks, and he's kind of been hitting well every step of the way so far this year. Double A 286, 382, 461, Triple A 333, 396, 478. Not a huge power guy, but kind of screams like mid-teens home run guy, 15, 16, maybe runs in the 20 home runs, 1 or 2 years. But yeah, this does a lot of things well. The approach is really solid. The contact skills are there. No real, red flags in the profile anywhere. So yeah, I think he's gonna be, a pretty solid part of, the next looking Arizona infield here. They traded a couple of guys this year, but hopefully Lawler can get it going, and maybe you see Lawler and Troy in that infield moving forward, with Perdomo and others. So yeah, I think Troy is another undervalued guy that is a good value target right now in dynasty leagues.
Yep, 117. Owen Casey. I'm probably like the lowest guy on him. Uh, I'm sure everyone else has in top 100. I'm just not a huge fan of him because the splits are terrible, Eric. I think we talked about him on Toolshed, and I mentioned that like he's just very bad against lefties. 225, 355, 371 slash against lefties. And I just don't really want to own platoon guys. Like I don't want to invest in platoon guys. I think I just really got burned by Evan Carter when I was like
Yeah.
all over Evan Carter, and then like I was like, oh, they're not even gonna try him against lefties. He's only gonna play against righties, even as a like top prospect. They're not even gonna try it. So like the way that teams are right now, the way that they platoon guys from the gate, and they don't even give the chance to the guy to grow. They don't even say, hey, we'll throw you 50 games against lefties and righties and see how that goes. They don't even do that anymore. It's like right out of the gate, nope, you suck against lefties. You're not going to hit against them. And I think that's just like what's going to happen to Casey. And there's a lot of swing and miss in the profile. Yeah, he hits the crap out of the ball. Yeah, he's got a good eye. But there's a lot of swing and miss in there. And then with that line against the lefties, I'm just not in on that. Like, I think, I don't know, 230 hitter with 30 homer potential, except then you have to say, okay, he's only going to play in 2/3 of games or whatever. So maybe he only gets 25 bombs, but I think that's just the type of player that Casey's going to be. What do you think, Eric?
Man, Casey has been like one of the harder guys for me to rank. I mean, I feel like if I had all my prospects on like a line graph where they're ranked every month, over the last couple of years, like he'd have like a wide like up, down, up, down, up, down. He's a guy that I was lower on the most. I think I still am. I think I'm a little bit higher on him than you are though, but he did increase the contact rates this year, got the K rate down a little bit. Like they were trending in the right way in the minor leagues this year, so that kind of made me bump him back up a little bit. But yeah, like there are times when people were like, "Oh, this top 25 prospect," and I had him like in the 60s or something like that. Back when he was kind of like peak value. So I don't know. He's a hard one to figure out like what he's going to be. Like you mentioned, like the quality of contact is double plus. Like I think easily can throw a 70 grade on that power, and he showed it. Like his quality of contact in AAA this year, like between the barrel rate and the hard hit rate, the EVs, like they were elite. Like 95 plus mile an hour exit velocity. I think the barrel rate was like in the vicinity of 20% this year. Like it was like basically Roman Anthony level power and quality of contact, but just not nearly as good of a pure hitter as Roman Anthony. But yeah, I don't know. And like, how does he fit into the long term plans? Does he have a spot? I thought he was going to get traded at the deadline, but obviously he did not. So back down AAA now after getting option for Alcantara. But yeah, I don't know, man. I've struggled to figure out like what I think Casey's going to be. I mean, could he be a 30 home run guy? Absolutely. But I also kind of feel similar to you. Like, is he only like a sub 250 guy? Like, is best case scenario like a like in Nick Castellanos type. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, he's like a 220 guy. Like I don't know. Yeah, so he's a hard one to figure out. Love the power, but yeah, there's definitely some warts in the profile for sure.
Yeah, he's gonna have to run like a super high BABIP season or
Right.
two to run a high average. He'll need that Nolan Jones BABIP season to get up there. 116 starting pitcher Wei and Lin with the Athletics. They've kind of like stopped playing him so much lately. Like his innings have gone like way down. There, I noted in my article that like the last since June, they've limited his pitch count to 50 pitches. So, like, if you're like, what happened to this guy? He was really hot at the beginning of the year, and I haven't heard anything about him since then. This is the reason why, because again, he's not going to pop like an 8 strikeout game or something that you're going to see on Twitter because he's only throwing 50 pitches and he's only going 3 innings or whatever because they're limiting his innings right now. He's a 19-year-old that came over from Japan, I want to say. So, of course, they're going to limit his innings when, over there, they don't throw as many innings to begin with, and they're only throwing every 6 days. My comp for him, though, is Jesus Luzardo matched with Shota Imanaga. Like, I love his sweeper. He's got it, and I love his fastball. His fastball sweeper combo to me is just like on point. That's chef kiss. And then the command too. Of course, like all these guys that come over from Japan always come over with pinpoint command, right? All these guys that come from the Far East, they're coming over pinpoint command. And the fastball has had up to 18 inches IVB as well. So that fastball sweeper combo really plays. Just kind of reminds me of Luzardo a little bit from the left side there. And I 191 Sierra on the season for Wei and Lin. A 384 ERA. I don't care. I'm ignoring that. What I'm paying attention to is the 191 Sierra. What I'm paying attention to is the 28.3 K minus walk and the 16.8 swinging strike rate. That's Wei and Lin with the Athletics.
Yeah, like he's a guy like when you look at K minus walk rate, I think he ranks pretty high up there because for the year he's at 28.5% K minus walk rate. It's a 33.9% strikeout rate, 5.5% walk rate. And that has ticked up. The walk rate has ticked up a decent bit in high A, but like you mentioned, they've kind of been really limiting his usage. But that's not surprising. 19-year-old, up to 80 innings at this point in the season, first year in professional baseball after coming over from Taiwan. He's definitely probably not going to go more than I'd say another, probably a few outings. Probably going to shut him down here pretty soon. But I like Wei In Lin a good bit. Another guy that just really helps. So that's why I love doing the daily articles 5-6 days a week, where these guys that I might have missed elsewise, like, oh hey, look, good outing from Lin. Oh hey, another good outing from Lin. He's a guy that. The Athletics, I think everyone's obviously been focused on some of their bigger names, guys that have already come up this year, the Kurtzes, the Wilsons, but, Wei In Lin on the pitching side is pretty underrated. I don't have him quite as high as this. I have him around like 150 or so, but he's definitely a very advanced, 19-year-old, like more advanced than you'll see most 19-year-olds. And maybe that's a product of coming over from Taiwan. Like you mentioned, that they seem to be more advanced at 18, 19 years old than a lot of kids from this country are at that same age. So that might have something to do with it. But yeah, I like Wei In Lin a lot, and I think he's kind of being slept on a little bit right now. So and maybe I'm not even high enough with my ranking of him, but yeah, definitely like Lin a lot.
Yeah, 115. Brock Wilken, third baseman with the Brewers. Talk about guys that bounce up and down my rankings, like you mentioned with Casey. This is one of them. Like I've had Wilken up at like in the 60s and then down and then up and then down. Just because like right when you think he's finally got it, then something happens to him. He gets mashed in the face, whatever, or like it, I don't know, something happens to him, whatever. I like him a lot though. To me, he's a righty Max Muncy. Which means that he should hit for a better average being a righty instead of a lefty version of Max Muncy. But that's what I think he is. He's got walks a lot. He's going to strike out a lot, and he's going to hit a lot of bombs, and he'll probably hit a lot of doubles. He's put up a 115 max EV. He has back in 2023, even 108.190th EV back 2 years ago. So you have to imagine that's probably ticked up since then. So he hits the crap out of the ball. It's just 226 batting average. Like you look at if you're in a points league or if you're in an OBP league, then you don't care. You're just like, okay, this guy's
Right.
awesome. He's gonna, hit a bunch of tanks for me. But if you're in a batting average league, then you've got to treat him just like you treat a guy like Max Muncy, or how like Eugenio Suarez, for instance. Like, he's had a couple good batting average seasons recently, but before that, he was like a 240 batting average guy, even with the bombs. So that's kind of how you've got to treat Brock Wilken as a prospect.
Yeah, I've always been a big Woken guy. I mean, when he came out of Wake Forest, I ranked him pretty highly because, the improvements you saw from him that last year at Wake Forest, where he was walking more, striking out less, contact rates were better. Obviously, then last year, kind of just went awry with that, broken facial bone. And then he just wasn't the same after he came back. I mean, actually, he came back pretty quickly. If I recall, he was only out for like a few weeks, which was really shocking. But I don't, again, the human element, like I've played baseball, obviously not, I played in high school up through high school, not at the, professional level, but I can just imagine getting hit in the face with a fastball. And then this psychologically, maybe you don't think it's there, but, I'm not surprised that he didn't really bounce back right away, and took him only till this year to bounce back. So that's why I didn't like kill him too much in my rankings. Yeah, he had to drop because of the production, but I was still a fan. He was a guy that I probably, said a few times, whether it be an article or on my podcast, hey, buy low on this guy, because I think the values are going to go up from here. Like the power is huge right now. And I'm not even like terribly worried about the K rate right now. Yeah, it's higher. It's nearly 28%. But I feel like a lot of that is due to like passivity, getting himself into too many like two strike counts, because the swing rate's pretty low for him, around 34% swing rate. And he only has a 9.5% swing and strike rate. So it's not like he's like, got a lot of swing and miss. There's some, but I think some factors in with the passivity, like I mentioned. So I'm not terribly worried about that. But like you mentioned, OBP format, definitely like OBP prospect rankings, he'd be top 100 for me easily. Average, he gets dip down a little bit, but I do think that average could tick back up though. I mean, doesn't look great, 224, but I think he can be like a 240, 250 guy, like with a 370, something, like that OBP and 30 plus bombs. I still think there's a really good, corner infielder here. Maybe he's never a, starting fantasy third baseman, but could he be like a solid quarter infielder for fantasy? Yeah, I do think that's in the cards for him, especially in OBP format. So yeah, I've always been a big Woken guy, and that's not changing right now.
Yeah, he's run 250 BABIPs this year and last year. So if he could even run a 270, 280 BABIP, which is, he's a righty, he's not a lefty, so he shouldn't get, spammed by being lefty and having like the half shift or whatever you want to call it right now on him. So he should perform a little bit better BABIP wise than if he were a lefty. 114, shortstop Angel Henao with the Guardians. He's been hurt a lot of this year. So if you look at the stats, you might say, oh, what, there's nothing really that sexy here if you just look at the back of the baseball card stats. You have to look under the hood to see the value in Henao, who is a 21-year-old, and like I said, missed a good amount of this year, but he's a plus hitter. He's a switch hitter with an 81.2% contact rate, and he is great, unlike Owen Casey. He is great from both sides. So being a switch hitter, even there are switch hitters out there that are still bad on one side. He's good on both sides. So he's like a legitimate switch hitter here. And last year, 10 home runs, 25 steals. So I think a lot of, what he's had to deal with is probably, he's coming back from injury. So like when you come back from an injury, it's going to be a little bit rougher for you. You're not going to be able to put up the same numbers that you had before. So I'm not really too concerned about the numbers this year. I think that, he's a potential 60 hit tool guy. 55 plate approach. I think he's got potential 50 power and potential 60 speed because he's had good exit velocities in the past. So like I'm really not too concerned about the numbers, and I think now is the buy window for Hanao.
Yeah, no, Hanao is a really solid prospect. I hate to say he might fall into like the better in real life than fantasy, category, but I'm not a big fan of like the power speed blend he has here. Like there's some power, there's some speed. Does he ever get the 20 home runs or 20 steals? I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical on that front, but this guy's gonna be a really good hitter. Like that much, I think should be very obvious to everybody that's kind of watched him. Yeah, the average is 250 right now. Whatever. I mean, the contact skills are there. And he's been like above 80% contact rate last year and this year. It's around 82% this year. Not a lot of swing and miss. in the profile. So it kind of feels a little bit like a Franklin Arias, where it's like hit tool, contact first. Got some questions about the power speed, but this guy's gonna hit. This guy is got, and that's gonna carry him. Like that hit tool is gonna carry him to the majors, and obviously Cleveland is a great organization with player development. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of maximize him more than even I think they can. So definitely a good system to be in there for Hanau. And yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I think he's a guy that's slept on a little bit here just because the stats aren't gaudy. But this is one of the better pure hitters in the minor leagues. A little bit on the smaller side. So again, I don't know what that power speed ends up being like. But even if he's 10 to 15 home runs, 10 to 15 steals, and hitting like 280 or something like that, that's still a value that a profile that provides value too. So yeah. And now good time to buy. I totally agree there.
Yeah, switch hitting Brennan Donovan, maybe. There we go.
Yeah.
Uh, 113. This is a big hype guy right now. Outfielder Nate George with the Orioles. Ton of speed here and a ton of power potential, despite only having 5 homers on the season with the 46 steals. He has in the past recorded a 108 max EV, and last year apparently had 104s in high school. So Nate George has obviously like 108 is pretty good for his age. For power. So I think there's more power in there. Like I've got him a 30 hit power right now with a potential 50. So I think he can grow into that. And the swing reminds me so much of Jackson Chourio. You got like kind of like Jackson Chourio mechanics here. So that's my comp that I threw on in this like Jackson Chourio light, which is big shoes to fill. But right now there's a ton of steam behind him. I'm probably the low guy on him at 113 actually. Because I've seen like you're doing it too, but right now we're live in Welsh's P180Ps. And I think someone picked him like top 50 or something like that in the one that I'm in. So there's a lot of steam behind Nate George right now.
Yeah, I was actually talking with Welsh, on Prospect One. We were talking about like where do we think some of these helium guys are going to go, like like Florentino, who I actually ended up taking at pick 24. And then like Nate George was another one where I think Welsh was saying like he might go top 50 in some of these. I think you'll see that ADP from these definitely within the top 100. I have him in the 90s right now, to be exact. Where is he? 96 to be exact from here now, but I might bump him up even further before my next update, but. Yeah, because there's a lot of helium, like you mentioned, but I think it's warranted. Like, you look at the season he's had. He's hitting 334 with a 413 OBP. He's got 49 steals. This might be the guy I was talking about. Remember earlier I alluded to the guy that had like high 40 steals, but like mid 20s caught. Yeah, that's Nate George. That's what I was thinking of earlier. 49 steals, 25 times caught. So definitely has to clean that up a little bit, but. At the same time, you can look at, like, hey, this guy is, the willingness to run is there. Like, obviously, if people look at, speed, and that absolutely is a part of stealing bags, but it's more than just raw speed. That's why, like, look at Juan Soto has more steals this year than Corbin Carroll. It's not just about speed. It's, obviously efficiency, willingness to run, situations, whether the team gives you the green light, team concept, all of that. So, George, again, needs to clean up the efficiency a little bit, but love that. He's a plus runner. In fact that he's running a lot is exciting. And if that power comes along, I mean, man, this guy could end up being like a top 25 prospect because he's running decent contact rates right now, like 77, 78%, walk rate above 10%, K rate well below 20%, and even in high A, his first 16 games in high A as a 19-year-old, walk rate around 15%, K rate around 18%. So has not been really phased by more advanced pitching. He's got more power projection on that frame. So yeah, if that power comes along, watch out. Like Nate George could, definitely be a top 25 guy. And again, another guy that wasn't a high draft pick. He was a 16th rounder last year. That's why I tell people don't fall asleep in the late rounds of your FYPD, as you could get these gems like Nate George who aren't really on anyone's radar, but they become one of the more exciting prospects in the game.
Yeah, he's the reason I have him at 113 is because he's so raw, right? Like he needs so much refinement still, and I feel like there's guys that have more refinement, but I'm probably not going to end up with him at this value. But it's just like there's so many guys that I like that it's hard for me to pick him over. But the thing is that's where you have to judge. Okay, do I want to go for that potential? versus like a given thing, a given player that might not have as much potential. So that's where you're at on George. He's like right at that line where you're like, okay, this is the risky play here. So, sometimes you want to jump on it. 112, outfielder slash first baseman Ryan Clifford with the Mets. He's having actually a really nice year. A lot of people don't even notice. And Ryan Clifford, actually, this is one thing that I like to point out. Ryan Clifford has a good hit tool. Like if you look into his career batting average and you're trying to judge his hit tool based on his batting average, you'll be like, oh, this guy sucks at hitting. He's just only power. But actually, no. This year, he has his contact rate has gone from 74.9% to 83.3% with a 93.5% zone contact for Ryan Clifford at AAA, which is insane. But obviously, like ABS is going to help, right? So now he gets to play with the ABS and the pitchers have to throw it in the zone. So this is one of those things that I talk about that like AAA really helps hitters and it's really bad for pitchers, especially when you've got pitchers with big movement that like to play corners. So Ryan Clifford is taking full advantage of that. 47 extra base hits with 26 bombs on the season. I think that he could be your next Pete Alonso, right? Like, maybe that's what the Mets are playing for here. They give Pete Alonso the short contract. Like, okay, let's just get Clifford ready, and then we fit him right in next year. I know, like everybody in New York loves Polar Pete, so that'd be a tough one for the fans. But he's a good hitter and 22.6% chase rate too. So like he's got a good plate approach too. So I throw a 50-55 on the plate approach too with Clifford.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the plate approach has always been good with him. The power's always been there, but yeah, there were some questions coming into this year. Like, where does the average line up? Where are those contact skills going to be? And I probably bumped them too low because of those concerns. Even though it wasn't like Spencer Jones concerns. Let's not like say it wasn't like a massive red flag, but like that was the issue with the Clifford, especially because he's not a guy that's going to give you really any speed. Like he's a guy that's maybe a rogue steal here and there, 2, 3, 4 steals a year at most. So you need the bat to be there, and if the hit tool isn't going to be there, you're like, all right, is he just empty power at this point with a decent OBP? But the fact that he's kept the K rate in check, he's been right around 25% this year, down from like 28, 29% last year. Still walking at a high clip. I think that's always been there, 12, 13, 14%. That's kind of been his range. And the fact that he's gotten those contact skills up this year. I mean, he was around 74% in AA, around 80% here in AAA. You mentioned the high zone contact rate as well. Swing and strike rates down this year too. So a lot of positive, trends here for Ryan Clifford. And obviously, he got the bump up, to AAA with Tong, with Benj, and with Williams a few weeks ago. So he's up there in Syracuse right now. So probably see him early part of next year too. So yeah, I think he's a guy that is trending back up in the right direction, and the guy could be top 100 again pretty soon. I think I had him like back in top 100 at one point, and then last year kind of deflated that. But I can see him getting back to that point. Yeah, he's definitely on that right track for sure.
Yeah, 111. Harry Ford just got called up today. How about that?
Yeah.
So Harry Ford with the Mariners catcher. He's been around forever. I'm sure that people have been up and down on him. This is like one of those classic prospect fatigue guys who's just been around, even though like he's still only 22. So he seems like way older. He seems way older than he actually is just because he's been around so long. Because everybody probably remembers back in the World Baseball Classic, he was like 18 or whatever, starting for Great Britain or whatever in the World Baseball Classic. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. But he's having a really good season. 289, 411, and 469 slash with 16 bombs and 7 steals. So that's pretty good. Also improved the contact rates this season. So up about 5% this year on the contact rates. Barrel rate and line drive rate are also up. And the main thing for me is like avoid the ground balls. That's been the killer for Harry Ford in the past. Is just like way too many ground balls because he does have decent power. It's not like anything great, but like he has, in the majors, 15 homer power probably. So like this is a guy as a catcher who could go 15-10, 15-15, kind of like, old school JT Real Muto back when Real Muto first broke into the league. So you might get some of those like raw, like rookie Real Muto type level statistics from full season of Harry Ford once he gets broken in, except that this is the difference. He has a better plate approach than Real Muto and probably a worse hit tool because his plate approach is insane. Like he's got a really great eye, especially, you don't really think of catchers who run like high OBP like he can. So, what do you think about Ford?
Yeah, Ford is like not your typical catcher, right? Like you look at just the profile. Like if I showed you the profile without telling you what position he was, you would not guess catcher. I mean, this guy, he's really good. He's probably one of the better athletes at the catcher position in all of baseball. And yeah, he hasn't been running as much this year as he has in years past, but like this could be a double-digit steal guy over a full season, maybe 15 to 20. I mean, he's shown that potential. He's a great athlete. He's an above average to plus runner in general. And there's solid power here too. I mean, this year, AAA 41% hard hit, 42% hard hit rate. EV around 89, max EV around 109, 110. But you mentioned the ground balls have been up this year from years past. Actually up around 11% from last year. So that's not super encouraging. But I just wonder like where does he fit long term, because they haven't really played him anywhere else. I mean, there were some thoughts back in the day, like, oh, maybe this guy could be like an outfielder type as well, corner outfielder. So I don't really know like what the the long term outlook for him, like playing time wise in Seattle looks like. Obviously, they have some fellow there named Cal Raleigh that's kind of just like beasting out and hitting 1 million home runs this year. So we'll see how that works out. But I've always been a Ford guy. I think just because there is some prospect fatigue, because he's been around for 5 years now. Didn't really get pushed at all by Seattle. He actually spent like he never up until this year. Once he debuts, this will be the first year he's played games at two different levels in a season. Like 2021 complex, 2022 low A, 23 high A, 24 double A, 25 so far it's just been triple A. So they have just been very slow churning with Ford so far, and he's the numbers have never like popped off at you for the most part, but underlying metrics have always been there. So I like Ford. He's always been like top 100 ish for me for the longest time now, and I actually think I have him in a very similar range to you right now. I'm pulling him up. I have Harry Ford in the 90s right now. So we're kind of right around Nate George right now. So I like Ford a lot. I just don't know what where he fits in with Seattle's long term plans, but maybe they trade him. I don't know. Kind of hard to say right now, but just looking at the profile, I like it. It's a very fantasy friendly profile. Can walk, keeps the K rate in check, can run, can hit for power. A lot of things to like here with Harry Ford. So yeah, I definitely think he's a top 100 guy for sure.
Yeah, 110. This is an interesting guy. I haven't really heard anyone else talk about him. It's Aaron Estrada with the Orioles. So this dude is 20 years old and he's at double A right now, balling out at double A. I think he's got like 5 home runs or something already at double A. As a 20-year-old, he's a small 5'8" switch hitting shortstop. Caught my attention when I was doing the weekly stuff, but he's got a 79.3% contact rate and 10 homers and 34 steals on the season as a 20-year-old in double A, and nobody has really even thought about him. He has a 138 WRC plus on the season too. Young for the level. Now, if you watch him, he's got the Ohtani swing. He's like a miniature, like it's like the mini me Ohtani because he's 5'8". But like he like literally has the Ohtani swing. But he's a tiny little switch hitter, so kind of like an Ozzy Albies profile is what I put in my notes here. But he's hit tool, power speed as a 20-year-old at that level. Aaron Estrada is a guy that I think that people should be paying attention to. The Orioles have a ton of dudes right now between Fourette and Estrada. It's like these are like unknowns, but I think they're both like really excellent prospects. And EVs too. The dude has hit a 112 max EV from being 5'8". So there's like a lot of power potential in here, which is why I give him a 40 potential 55 on the power because he can hit the crap out of the ball. He's shown that.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely guilty of underranking Ron Estrada as early as the last few months. I've really started to push him up my rankings, but yeah, he's a bit undersized, but doesn't have that one wow tool, but just a solid, more of like a sum of the parts type of guy as opposed to being big power, big speed, anything like that. Though he does have a lot of steals this year. Like I don't think he's like a burner or anything, but the fact that he's 50-55 in a lot of areas. Like you mentioned, the contact skill is being pretty solid right now while being young for the level. Not a lot of swing and miss in the profile either. Decent enough walk rate, not super gaudy, but 8% in double A, 10% for the year. And yeah, the fact that there is some power projection, like you wouldn't think about it with these 5'8" guys. I think he might be a little bit taller than that now, but He's still a small guy, but definitely packs a punch for his size. So another kind of like pop up guy this year that doesn't get enough love. And again, I was guilty of that too. But yeah, I have him top 200 now. I'm not quite top 100 on Estrada, so I want to see like where that power ends up long term. But definitely a decent, kind of undervalued guy for sure. And maybe I'm still undervalued him with my ranking, but yeah, definitely trending up for sure.
Yeah, that when I saw those EVs, I was like, "Oh man, there's way more power in there than I thought." And Double A has really been going off. 109 starting pitcher Kendry Rojas was traded from the Blue Jays to the Twins during the trade deadline here. I was really big on Rojas earlier this year. Was looking really good, and then for whatever reason, since he's been at the Twins, he's been terrible. So like, I don't know what really happened there. It probably dropped him out of my top 100. So I think I would have had him in the 90s if it wasn't for like how bad he has been since he's come over for from the Blue Jays to the Twins. You already mentioned how good the Blue Jays have been with their pitchers this year, but like literally his walk rate jumped up like 4 or 5%, and he's just been pretty horrendous with the Twins. So I don't really know why. Maybe he just didn't expect to get traded and got traded and kind of messed with him mentally. But he's got good stuff. The only thing for me with Rojas is that he hasn't thrown a lot of innings because he's only at about 60 right now. He was only about 60 last year. But he does have 3 pitches that I throw 55, 60s on between the slider, the changeup, and the sinker. And then he also has like I comped him to Christopher Sanchez is like my comp on him because he's kind of like this dude that's gonna get a lot of ground balls and get a lot of outs that it's kind of sneaky, like low whip type guy in the future, I think. Especially, the Twins kind of right their wrongs with whatever they were doing because he had a 2.7% walk rate at Double A, and then an 8% in Triple A with Toronto, and then all of a sudden now almost 13% in Minnesota since the trade.
Yeah, I don't know what's been going on in Minnesota. He's got, but there's also a 533 BAB up there, so I think he's had a little bit of bad luck, bad luck as well. But yeah, definitely, I like Rojas a lot as well. And like you mentioned the super low walk rate that also came with like I think he had like a 30, well, what was it? The upper 30s, low 40, yeah, 40% on the nose strikeout rate in Double A as well. So it was a 2.7% walk to a 40% strikeout rate. That has to get you excited, no matter who it is. So, yeah, you mentioned there's not a lot of innings here, so that's the thing. Like, can he hold up? He's never pitched 100 innings in the season. His highest was 84 back in low A in 2023. Last year 65. This year he'll get right up in that same range. He's at 58 right now, so that's definitely a concern, but definitely a talented pitcher. And I'm not really got to knock him too much. I mean, a little bit for sure. But again, just switching. It's been a weird year for him and coming back from injury and getting it going and then getting traded. So it's kind of been a kind of a rough year for him in terms of just, moving all around from rehabbing to the upper minors again, playing at the complex and low A for a little bit. So he's been all over the place this year. So I think that might factor in a little bit, but definitely a talented arm. So, definitely one that should be targeted pretty heavily in dynasty leagues.
Yeah, agreed. Especially because he's close. He's proximity. So
Yep.
like that's with pitchers, that's what you want. 108. I have outfielder AJ Ewing with the Mets. I know a lot of people are really high on him, but like I don't know, these types of profiles are always just like so risky for me that like I never really jump these high speed like low power type guys too high in my rankings. Maybe he'll make it into my top 100 before he graduates, but I doubt he's ever a top 40 or 50 guy just because of the profile. Because basically, you've got the same profile that you have with Justin Crawford, right? And Justin Crawford might do it a little bit better. So why am I going to rank a guy like this ahead of a guy like Justin Crawford? So almost 80% contact, 89% zone contact. He does have some decent EVs, not as good as Crawford, like I mentioned. 7.4% barrel rate is better though, and he's got better angles than Justin Crawford, as an example. But 66 steals, that's what you're buying with AJ Ewing is high batting average and a boatload of steals. So what do you think about Ewing?
Yeah, it's a weird profile, right? Like you mentioned the power, though I think there's more power than the 3 home runs would indicate. Last year he did have 10 and 90 games. Like I think there is like fringy raw power here, so maybe he can get to be like a 10, 12 homer guy. But I think that 10 to 15 range is probably like best case scenario for him. Like I don't see 15 to 20 or anything like that. So, but can he get to that range? Like is that a possible outcome, or is he kind of stuck in being like a single digit home run guy, which he can still provide value in other ways, but we've seen a lot of these guys just not be able to make it work. I mean, Simpson is now, but like look at Victor Scott. He didn't really make it work. He's had some glimpses, but like you mentioned, I think you get it spot on that it is kind of a risky profile to invest in. But Ewing has outside of the power, a lot of good. You mentioned like the high contact rates, really good approach, high walk. Keeps the K rate in check, gets on base, steals a ton of bags. He's efficient too. Only been caught 9 times this year in 77 attempts. So a lot of good here. I have him as a back top 100 guy. I want to see some power in more game power to put him top 50. So I think as a 10 to 15 home run guy, I think he's top 50. But is he a 5 home run guy? That's still a top 100 for me, just given the rest of the profile. But yeah, definitely one of those weirder profiles to kind of rank and evaluate.
Yeah, for sure. 107, another Met starting pitcher, Jack Wenninger with the Mets. Uh, really like this guy. He's a workhorse, 118 and 2/3 innings on the season now. Really nice arsenal, too. Like pretty well rounded arsenal, good command. 20.2 K minus walk rate on the season, 273 ERA, 111 whip. And this dude is, if you've ever seen him, he's a big dude. Like he looks like one of those early 2000s aces. That's what I always talk about. He's got the wide shoulders, the long legs, like looks like Roy Halladay up on the mound. And I love his splitter. That's like really the bread and butter with him is he's got a nice fastball. I get a 55 grade, 94 to 97 mile per hour fastball, but his splitter, I throw 60 to 70 grade on. It's nasty. It's got a lot of movement, dives high, dives right. Are obviously going arm side. He's got a slider and a curveball as well that are pretty solid. But Wenninger's just like a really nice, well-rounded starter here, and very like big projectable body. Like I feel like he's just like a lock to be a really good number 3 starter. And I kind of like that. I kind of dig that he's got the old school starting pitcher body and he's throwing a bunch of innings because like that's value. Like it's hard to find those guys nowadays.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like he was a bit undervalued entering the year just because he was 23 before the start of the season, and never pitched above high A ball, and last year wasn't. It was a fine year last year. He struck out some batters, but ERA wasn't great, WHIP wasn't great, so not really a guy that was on a lot of people's radars and prospect rankings. But another guy that a product of my daily write ups where I was like, all right. I've written about Wenninger like 4 times in the last 2 months. Like, all right, this guy is starting to get legit here. And you mentioned like it's sub 3 ERA right now. The walk rates come down this year. Still has a pretty good strikeout rate, around like 27.5%. So yeah, I think I think SP34 is a very fair kind of evaluation of him. Like not a stud, not a frontline guy. But definitely a high floor guy who's been pretty consistent this year. Like you look at the game logs, not a lot of blowups in there, pretty consistent. Start to start, week to week, month to month. So a guy that I was hoping to see last week, but I just left on vacation. He pitched like Friday night here. I was already kind of making my way towards when I went down to the Philadelphia area. So unfortunately, I missed his start. That's kind of bummed about that. But yeah, definitely a pretty solid pitching prospect. Another guy that's just pretty undervalued right now for sure.
Yeah, 123 innings now actually on the year. So I don't know. Like usually, like the max you see in the minors is like 140. So he might be that guy. Like
Yeah.
he might be the guy who pitches the most innings this year out of anyone in minor league baseball.
115 last year too. So he's been kind of like a workhorse the last couple of years. I want to see like where he ranks like on just innings pitched like the last 2 years combined because he's up near that's 238 and 2/3 combined over the last 2 years. That's got to be pretty high up there.
Yeah, definitely. 106. I've got outfielder Chris Rodriguez. Fun name here as a
Yeah.
DSL guy. But 10 bombs, 10 steals, 23 extra base hits in the DSL, 308, 340, 564. and the dude just mashes. He's got ridiculous EVs. Tigers paid him a lot of money when they signed him over. Gave him 3.2 mil, so pretty good amount of money there. And like for him, it's all about the power. He's going to be all power guy right here. And like if you watch him hit, to me, like his swing just reminds me of A-Rod, kind of like a little George Springer maybe too, because I don't think he's as big as A-Rod is. And DSL guys are always risky, right? They're always high risk, but this is like one of the top 3 DSL guys for me. We're going to talk about one more in this ranking, and then I've got another one that's even higher. But this is like top 3 DSL player for me is outfielder Chris Rodriguez with the Tigers.
Everyone, this less international signing period, everyone's talking about, Gonzalez as being like the number one guy. I think he was pretty universally the number one guy for the Giants, Josué de Jesus Gonzalez. But I went on record as saying like, all right, yeah, he's probably the top guy rank wise right now. But there was a trio of Chris Rodriguez, Kevin Alvarez with Houston, and Michael Corrette with Tampa Bay. I'm like, these guys all might have higher ceilings for fantasy. Like maybe Gonzalez is a better pure hitter, but the power speed blend those other guys have, I think, it wouldn't surprise me if they became the better fantasy prospects long term. And Rodriguez has already shown that. He's probably been the most impressive out of all these big name international guys from last year. You mentioned 10 home runs, 10 steals, hitting over 300. He's aggressive, but he's 17. Like I'm not like it's not like out of the norm for a guy this young to be this aggressive. So that can have to absolutely be ironed out moving forward. But the fact that he's already showcasing his power, he's a big guy, still has projection left. So he could be he was listed at 6'3", 200 right now. Like this guy could be like a 6'5", 220, 230 type of guy when he's done developing. Like just like one of those physical specimens who also moves well too. Maybe he loses a tick on the speed department moving forward. We've seen that, but I think this is still gonna be a guy that even if that speed ticks down, I think he's still gonna be at least an average runner. I think he's like a 15, 20 steal guy potentially down the road with 30 plus home runs, and we'll see where the hit tool comes up. But if he can just be 50 grade there too, this could be a really, really special talent. Like I have him back at top 100 right now. And I think give it another year, he'll come stateside next year, get into the complex. Maybe if they get aggressive, a little bit of low A later next year, you could really see him pop in rankings, be like a top 25 guy by the end of next year. I could absolutely see that.
Yeah, for sure. 105 is another DSL guy. I told you I had three, and he's one of my top 3. This one is one of my favorite guys. When I do my weekly articles, like this guy every week was just so consistent. And that's shortstop Edgar Montero with the Athletics. He's actually a repeat DSL guy. So he was in DSL last year and was bad. This year, 25% walk rate, 22% K rate. You never see that. Like he has ungodly plate discipline for DSL. Like usually the DSL guys are running like 20% swing strike rates. He had an 11% swing strike rate. And then he had 313, 484, 580, 26 extra base hits, 9 bombs, 11 steals. So I really love Edgar Montero, who's also a switch hitter and big, 6'2", shortstop. Got kind of like the Juan Soto type batting stance. So he's got those mechanics in the box, but I think like profile wise, obviously like switch hitting middle infielder, Ozzy Albies is one of the first names you think of, especially with maybe, some work to do as far as like plate approach wise for a swing, but like he's better because like he walks. So like he's got, the plate approach you want to see in the DSL. And I think that he's just like a very, very solid player where he doesn't have the power upside that Rodriguez has. But I think that he's, again, like one of these guys that's a bag of like 50, 55 tools and is kind of underrated here. Edgar Montero with the Athletics.
Yeah, he's a guy that I was probably late to the party on because, last year, obviously, like you mentioned, didn't have the greatest showing in the DSL. And I always get, even when they perform well as a repeat DSL guy, I'm always a little skeptical. That's just how I've approached it. And usually that works out. But then other times you get a Montero who pops off and it keeps happening, keeps going. And then like, all right, this is legit. It's not just because he's repeating the level, but, definitely a lot of good tools here. Good frame. Like you mentioned, 6'2", 190. I think he's a little bit bigger than that now, but he's definitely got solid power. Not a burner by any means, but I think that he'll at least be like maybe a 5 to 10 steal guy down the road. But I think the X factor here is going to be like where do the contact skills wind up? We know he can get on base. We know he has some solid raw power. And yeah, he's hit for a high average this year, but like, where do those contact skills wind up long term? Is he, a 240 guy? Is he 270 guy? Kind of still waiting to see how that shakes out. But yeah, the Athletics are another one of those orgs that have gotten sneaky good, and not just because of the the Kurtzes and the Wilsons of the world. They got some guys in the lower half of their minor league system, in the lower levels that are kind of sneaking up on people. So yeah, Montero, guy that I was absolutely late to the party on, but yeah, I've pushed him. I'm not this high on him yet, but he's definitely kind of getting in that top 200 range for me. But yeah, definitely trending up, no doubt about that.
Yeah, big time angles guy. Like great air pull, like almost 55% pull rate and 47% fly ball rate on the season. So like good angles here for Montero, which is tough for a switch hitter. A lot of switch hitters struggle with angles because you're hitting on both sides of the plate. But he does it. So gotta love that. Next, 104, starting pitcher Parker Messick. We've seen him in the majors for a couple starts right now, so we don't really have to spend too much time on him. Obviously has the big changeup. Interesting looking lefty because he's like kind of like a shorter, bigger dude. But that changeup is insane. At AAA this year, 23.1% swing strike rate on that changeup. So like that right there is going to tell you that's going to be one of the better changeups in baseball as he progresses here. 303 Sierra too at AAA, and by the end of this year, he was getting better command wise. At the beginning of the year, when he got to AAA, he was getting rocked. He had like a 140 something whip at the beginning of the year, and then the whip continued to work down. So what happened with Messick is what you want to see happen with all the AAA guys, where they figure out the AAA zone, they figure out how to deal with the ABS, and then they win and they get it. Like Quinn Matthews is, and like there are some guys who have really struggled with that at AAA. Like Brandon Sprout, another guy who just has not had any success doing that at AAA. But Parker Messick had the struggles, figured it out, gamed it, got to the majors, and now he's even better.
Yeah, just another win for the Cleveland pitching factory, where I feel like that's where Cleveland really excels at. Like these guys that weren't highly thought of prospect, even though Messick was a second round pick, he wasn't like a 12th rounder or anything like that. But the guys that don't pop off in rankings aren't like top 100 guys, but they just find ways to maximize these players. You can get the most out of them. Houston, another good example of that on the pitching side as well. But yeah, Messick's been really, really impressive these first three starts. Yet to allow a barrel. I mean, it's three starts, but yet to allow a barrel so far. Only a 2% walk rate, only one walk so far to 14 strikeouts in 17 and the third innings. And mixing, let's say he's got a really deep arsenal, 5 pitches, four seam, change, slider, curve, sinker. So 2 variations of the fastball, 2 variations of a breaking ball, and a really good changeup. I think that's going to be like his bread and butter. Like the 4-seamer doesn't blow you away, but I think the other pitches in the arsenal help that 4-seamer, where he's in 4 different velocity bands. He's in the mid to upper 80s with his slider, low to mid 80s with the changeup, good separation from the fastball there. Got the upper 70s curveball, could turn it over and throw that sinker as well. So, and really a nice arsenal all around. I mean, I'm not thinking he's going to be like a top 50 pitcher or anything like that, but he's a guy that I think if you picked him up for probably like maybe just added them for free or got them for super cheap, you're kind of reaping the rewards of that now. And these are the guys you need to get. Maybe he's not a building block for you, but you need to get these guys in Dynasty to win championships and kind of help round out your pitching staff. So yeah, really exciting first 3 outings for him. We'll see if he can keep it going, but definitely a guy that I was too low on earlier in the year, and he's definitely been a pleasant surprise. No doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. 103 is another starting pitcher. It's Brody Hopkins with the Rays. It says here he's an A-ball, but he's not. He's in AA. Typo. But anyway, Brody Hopkins is a really interesting dude. Talk about pitches. This guy has pitches at the wazoo. 6 pitches in this arsenal too. Right now, he's just trying to figure out how to tie his stuff in together. Because to me, like he has all these pitches that are really, really good individually. But like then you look at his stats, and you're like, how does this guy with all these 60 grade pitches, 55 grade pitches, still only have a 12% swinging strike rate? Like something is not adding up here. Part of that is command, because his command is bad. So a part of that is just bad command, and maybe guys just say, "Oh, okay, I know that's outside." They just don't go after it. And then a part of that is probably just bad pitch mix. Like he's got to figure out how to pitch instead of just throw, because you have here a 96 to 99 mile per hour fastball that I throw a 60 grade on. You've got a sweeper, you got a cutter, sinker, changeup, you've got a curve. So he's got this giant arsenal of all these good pitches, and it's just okay, what's happening here? And he's got like a really funky arm slot too. So he's throwing like under 3/4 is what I call it. Kind of like, I don't know. I comped him to a shades of a wild Zach Wheeler, because like he's got all these pitches, and then he kind of has like the way out there arm angle that Wheeler has, but it's actually even under that. So Brody Hopkins is a super interesting pitcher. My other comp for him too, back when Cooper Jerpy was like a dude, was like, I'm like, he's like the righty Cooper Jerpy kind of. But I think Hopkins is a really interesting name, and the stuff is really good. He just hasn't put it all together yet, and that's what's keeping him outside of the top 100 for me.
Man, real quick, I kind of wish that Cooper Jerpy had become something, and he still could, but I had a good nickname for him, Beef Jerpy. I thought this got catch on if he became a major league arm, but we'll see. But
he looked so good this spring. I saw him a bunch of times this spring before he got hurt, and he looked like really good. And yeah. I don't know. I think when he comes back, he'll probably be a dude. But
yeah, definitely a really fun arm, no doubt about that. But same thing with Hopkins. I mean, this is not a direct comp, but he gives me like, I think the way I think about him is the way I kind of thought about like Joe Boyle, a few years ago, where it's like, all right, it's loud stuff, but he has a hard time kind of putting it all together. And you've seen that. I mean, he's had a pretty solid year. I mean, in the minor leagues this year, what's the ERA? Yeah, 2.80 right now, 130 Ks, 106 innings. But, the walk rate has always been on the higher end for him. It's up to 12% this year, though, 208 batting average against. So he's a guy where I feel like there could be a couple different paths to value for him. I mean, I think when people hear the term reliever risk, they get scared away. And yeah, I see why. But I think even if the bullpen is Hopkins' ultimate long-term home, which I'm still kind of like on the fence about if I think he's a starter long-term or not, but he could be a really good late inning bullpen guy too. Like, so you could provide value, in that avenue as well. So it's not always like a total, detriment to their value. So I don't know. Hopkins is a really fun arm. I agree that it's top 100 arm talents, but he needs to show that he knows he's more of a thrower than a pitcher right now. And he needs to show that he can be a pitch, especially in the Rays, because the Rays will get rid of a guy like this pretty quickly. They don't, they have plenty of options so that they can move on to the next guy, trade him away for whatever. We've seen the Rays do that time and time again. So, but a guy that he's thrown over 100 innings each the last 2 years, that's encouraging. But he's a guy that I think next year we talk about him as being a guy that's popping off in the majors, or a guy that has completely fallen off and we're not super excited about anymore. So we'll see on Hopkins, but definitely a really fun arm. There's no denying that.
Yep, that's for sure. 102. Another fun arm is Cam Caminiti with the Braves. He has gotten better as the season has gone on. And one of the things the Braves have done with him too is he's been pitching more. Like his pitch count has been going up each game. So it's basically like opposite of Lynn with the Athletics, where they're like limiting him more. Like Caminiti is getting built up more and more as he goes on here. Another fun arm slot, under like right under a 3/4 arm slot, kind of like not like not quite sidearm, but like definitely like abnormal arm slot. But he's running a 284 Sierra right now. Really good fastball sweeper combo for Caminiti. He's also got like a changeup that has split characteristics. So like sometimes you see him call it a splitter, sometimes you see it called a changeup. And I think that he's gonna be a dude. The command is the biggest issue right now for Caminiti, is like, can he get the command on point? So like I just think that the stuff, like we talked about Johnny King, we talked about Dason Hill, so we talked about some of these other A-ball starters. I just think that the stuff is bigger with Caminiti. Like he's got a couple pitches that are, borderline plus here that could lead to like a higher upside than a King or a Dason Hill, I think, as far as a starter. But for him, it's going to be all about the command. What do you think about Caminiti?
Yeah, I love Caminiti. I have him, I think around 75 overall. Where do I have him? Uh, Where's 81 right now overall, and I definitely think he could push up even higher than that. By the end of the season. I've always been high in Caminiti. I mean, the fact that he checks off like if whenever I go like heavy invest on a high school arm like early on in their minor league career, I want to see them check off at least like 2 or 3 out of these boxes. And Kimini did that. I mean, out of the draft, like, all right, good fastball, very advanced for his age. He's still raw in general, but compared to his peers that are the same age and experience as him, he's one of the more advanced arms you'll see at his age and experience level. And the fact that he can command fairly well, fact that he can already has a good feel for a change, good feel for spin, like all those boxes are kind of checked off to some varying degree. Still has some work to be done. Obviously, he's far from a finished product, but really exciting arm. And I think he might be, one of the best arms from that draft class last year, and be the next great, Atlanta Braves pitching prospect. And hopefully, they don't push him to the majors next year or anything like that. But I think you got a really special guy with like SP2 upside. So I've been very high on Caminiti since like FYPD days last year, and I've been kind of pushing him higher and higher every update so far. So maybe early part of next year he's top 50, and he's already in that top 10 pitching prospect discussion for me already. I mean, that's how high I am on this kid.
Oh, nice. I liked him, but I'm always been a Sloan guy over Caminiti, and
Oh,
still am.
I love Sloan too. I think I have Sloan. Actually, they're very close. I think I have Sloan like a few spots. Yeah, I have Sloan like 3 spots ahead of my overall. So they're both very close for me.
Nice. 101. Last guy we're going to talk about is Ava Arquette, a new guy with the Marlins. He's actually played a little bit already and hit a home run and has 5 steals. So actually putting up some numbers right now in pro ball. Ava Arquette was a shortstop out of Oregon State, big shortstop, 6'5" frame. Kind of got comps to Pratt. So coming up, so like kind of similar style. I just don't know with this type of guy, Eric. I'm like, okay, so you got a big, lean, tall shortstop here, and we were just talking of the Marlins org, but the Marlins have been better about developing pitchers than hitters. And when they get like the athletic tall guys, I feel like they don't work. Like it just JJ Bleday was like the last guy that they drafted who is like a taller, kind of like guy with bad contact power type. And that's, I don't know. I just get similar vibes, I guess, with Arquette, where I'm like, I don't know if the contact's ever going to work with him. Like he's got decent power speed. He's got solid power speed. I've never really been an Arquette guy. I was not really big on him coming into the draft, even before the Marlins drafted him. And, the way that they've developed this type of player is not really, has not really worked in the past for the Marlins. So I'm not really high on Ava Arquette here.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that. I don't love the landing spot, to be honest with you, but I do. I like Arquette. I think there are some people. Like I think. Don't quote me this. I can't remember exactly. One of the Chris's, either Welsh or Clegg, maybe both, were pretty high on him. I think it was. I think Welsh was especially high on Arquette. But again, I don't want anyone to quote me on that, as I might be wrong. But there are some people that do like Ava Arquette a good bit, and I see why. I mean, he's tall, projectable, has the power upside, from shortstop. You love the dream on that. Still has some projection to fill out, too. I mean, he could add another 10, 15 pounds of muscle here over the next year or two, and it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, like, will the rest of the profile be there outside of the power? Like, is the hit tool, 40 grade? Is it 50 grade long term? He's not really much of a runner. So I don't see him being more than like a 5, 6, 7, 8 steal guy, something like that. So you got to wonder, like, is that hit tool going to be there to go with the pop? That's the question. But I have Arquette in a similar range right now. I have I got to spell the name right here in my rankings to find him, but I think I have him right around top 100 overall. I have him at 103 overall right now. So definitely a guy that's in this discussion for top 100, and he's borderline top 10 FYPD guy, and I think a guy that could be top 50 next year. Maybe he falls out if the hit tool doesn't come along. He's one of those guys I think has a wide range of outcomes, over the next year or so. So we'll see how it goes. Again, don't love the Miami landing spot, but big power for Arquette. So that's exciting. No doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. And that homer that he hit was an Oppo Taco too. So
Right. Yeah.
he got around on that one. So anyway, that's the podcast. We got through 101. Thanks, Eric, for coming on. You can find Eric obviously on the Tool Shed Pod and at Eric Cross MLB on X. And you can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball, or you can watch on YouTube at the Tim Kanak if you want to follow along with the write ups and stuff like that as we're talking. Thanks, everybody. Peace out. We'll see you next time.